Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are jumping right into what might be the single biggest, most audacious business bet in history. It's a story about one decision that cost more than building the atomic bomb and, believe it or not, ended up creating the digital world we all live in today. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 1964. The man you see quoted here is Thomas Watson Jr., the head of IBM. And when he says this, he is not exaggerating, not one bit. He's about to unveil a project so enormous, so risky, that it would either turn IBM into an untouchable titan of industry or completely bankrupt the entire company. He was, quite literally, betting the farm.
And this is what he was betting. $5 billion. Now, you got to remember, this is in 1960s money. Today, that's over $40 billion. To put that in perspective, it was more than IBM's entire revenue for the last 3 years combined. I mean, that's just an insane, staggering amount of money.
And if you're still not getting the scale of this, look at this comparison. The Manhattan Project, the secret program to build the atomic bomb, cost $2 billion. IBM's gamble on our new computer line cost more than double that. Think about that for a second. This wasn't just a product launch. It was a national-level effort, bankrolled by a single company.
So you have to ask, right? Who is the kind of person willing to make such a colossal bet? To really get why this happened, we first have to understand the gambler himself, a young and surprisingly insecure Thomas Watson Jr.
You see, he wasn't born a titan of industry. Far from it. As the son of IBM's founder, he was basically corporate royalty, but he was what you'd call a reluctant prince. Apparently, he had this strange vision defect that made words just fall off the page when he tried to read. That, combined with living under the huge shadow of his very strict father, led to a childhood filled with self-doubt and even depression.
But then, something happened that changed everything. After kind of drifting into a sales job at IBM, World War II broke out. Watson Jr. signed up and became a pilot, eventually a decorated lieutenant colonel. It was up there, in the sky, away from his father's constant watch, that he finally found himself, his confidence. He came back a totally different person and rocketed up the ranks at IBM, becoming president just a few short years later.
And it wasn't just him who noticed the change. A friend of his father's really nailed it, saying that once he conquered that early self-doubt, his natural talent just exploded. That newfound confidence, it was going to be the fuel for everything that came next.
And this is where things get really interesting, because it set up this huge clash of ideas within IBM. His father, Old Watson, had built an empire on mechanical calculating machines. He saw these new electronic computers as expensive, unreliable toys. But his son, Watson Jr., saw the future. He was convinced computers were everything, and he was about to prove it by betting the entire company. Okay, so he's finally in charge. He has the keys to the kingdom. What's the first thing he does? Well, he didn't just stumble into this massive gamble. He had a deliberate, methodical plan to completely remake IBM in his own image.
He didn't just wing it. He had a real blueprint. First up, he broke apart his father's rigid, top-down power structure. Then he brought in famous designers to create a sleek, unified brand, all built on his motto that good design is good business. Then, and this is crucial, he tripled the R&D budget, teamed up with MIT to hoover up talent and tech, and started pouring money into software. Every single one of these steps was a building block for the huge bet that was coming.
But it wasn't just about strategy and money. Watson Jr. knew that a great company is built by great people with a shared mission. So, way before this was a common thing, he established these 3 core beliefs for every single person at IBM. And this wasn't just some corporate fluff on a poster. It created this incredibly unified, motivated workforce that really became the model for how a lot of modern companies operate. And if you want to see just how serious he was, just look at the money. Under his dad, research and development got a measly 3% of sales. Watson Jr. jacked that up to 9%. He tripled it. And that fire hose of cash wasn't going to old mechanical stuff. It was all aimed directly at funding the computer revolution he was dreaming of.
All right, so the stage is set. The company has been totally reshaped, the money is flowing, and now we get to the main event. Watson Jr. is about to launch the project that would define his legacy and change the world, the System/360.
So what was this massive problem that needed a $5 billion solution? Well, in a word, it was chaos. At the time, IBM's product line was a total mess. They had one set of computers for businesses, another for scientists, and none of them could talk to each other. Every single machine had its own software, its own peripherals.
If you were a customer and you needed a bigger computer, you had to throw everything out and start from scratch. It was a complete nightmare.
So the vision for the System/360 was, on one hand, beautifully simple, but on the other, just unbelievably ambitious. The idea was to create one single family of computers. A small business could buy a little one, and as they grew, they could upgrade to a bigger, more powerful model. And here's the magic part. All of their software, all of their equipment would still just work. Nobody had ever even tried to do this before.
Yeah, great idea, right? The problem was, actually building this thing was a beast, and the costs, they just started to spiral completely out of control. What started as a $675 million budget, which was already huge, just kept ballooning until it hit that final, terrifying $5 billion number. The project was now big enough to sink the entire company.
So you're probably wondering, where on earth did all that money go? Well, the hardware was hard enough, but the real monster was the software. Creating the operating system for these machines, called OS 360, took 5,000 person-years of work. Just to compare, the early versions of Microsoft Windows took about 1,000. This was a project on a scale that nobody had ever seen. See, the thing is, nobody had ever tried to manage a software project this big before. There was no playbook. The teams were just drowning in delays, in bugs, in chaos. And the brutal, painful lessons they learned trying to build OS/360 basically forced the creation of a whole new discipline, software engineering. It even led to the project's manager, Fred Brooks, writing his legendary book, The Mythical Man-Month, which is still required reading for coders today.
So, against all odds, despite the chaos, the crazy budget, coming this close to total failure, they actually pulled it off. In 1964, the System/360 was released, and in that moment, the world truly changed forever.
And the success? Oh man, it wasn't just a success. It was total, absolute domination. By the 1980s, IBM didn't just lead the computer market, it pretty much was the market. Its competitors, big names like GE and RCA, were so tiny in comparison that the entire industry had a nickname for them: IBM and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah, the System/360 didn't just win the race, it basically kicked everyone else off the track. Over the next couple of decades, every single one of those seven dwarfs either got out of the computer business completely or they got bought up. IBM had become a true monopoly.
But wait, the story's not over. There's one more incredible twist. Being that dominant, well, it got the attention of the US government. Facing a massive antitrust lawsuit, Watson Jr. made another game-changing decision in 1969. He decided to unbundle IBM's products. He would start charging for software and services as separate things from the computer hardware.
And this decision had a huge, totally unintended consequence. Before this, software was just this free thing you got to convince you to buy the really expensive hardware. By unbundling, Watson Jr. accidentally created a market for software itself. For the very first time, new companies could pop up just to write and sell code. He didn't just build a better computer, he literally gave birth to the entire multi-trillion-dollar software industry we have today.
So from a young man struggling with self-doubt to the leader who made a $5 billion bet that paid off, Thomas Watson Jr. didn't just change a company, he fundamentally shaped the digital age. His all-in gamble on the System/360 and then his decision to unbundle software laid the very foundations of our modern world. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the great gamble being made right now that's going to define the world of tomorrow?